What is up, ECET2? My name is John Spencer, and I have been in education for the past 14 years. I currently team teach 41 of the greatest fifth grade students with my partner in crime and brother in education, Mr. Jerry Lee Wright, in a place that we fondly call Realville. Now, REAL in Realville stands for we want our students to be respectful citizens, eager learners, agents of change, but most importantly, we want them to be leaders of tomorrow. But you see, that's not all that Realville is all about. See, without realizing that word real has become something much deeper in meaning for me as a teacher. And the journey really started many years ago. You see, I'm a former city boy from Indianapolis, Indiana. Woo woo! Who's your state? There we go. Shout out! That's what I'm saying. Yeah, I grew up in a suburb of Indianapolis called Speedway, which is built around the famous Indianapolis 500. Yeah, I attended the Speedway Public Schools, home of the Fighting Speedway Spark Plugs. Oh yeah, now you know, you have never seen a more intimidating spark plug than Sparky. You know. Now, my experience in the Speedway school system throughout my childhood was what you would call interesting. Don't you just love that little bowl haircut that my mama used to cut with her orange-handled scissors about every 6 weeks? Nice, back when I had hair. Don't have that problem anymore. But you see, I was the type of student that felt it was their duty to ensure that every teacher that I came into contact with earned their pay. Now, with that came some benefits. You see, my name was a constant faculty lounge conversation. Teachers would rush at the beginning of the year to get their class list to see if my name was on it. I seemed to always be the lucky student that would win that classroom lottery to be the one to get to move their desk closest to the teacher. Seemed to happen every year. You know, my teachers were so kind, they would routinely give me extra think time. Although, as I reminisce about that, it usually happened in the hallways. You see, I was that kid. You know, I was the kid that teachers would name their school years after, but never their babies. I was the kid that teachers never forgot. You see, my parents wondered if I would even make it out of middle school alive. And that's when these two men came into my life and changed everything. This is Mr. Tom Smith and Coach Emmett Carney. They changed my life because they invested in me. They were different than any other educator that I had ever encountered. Now, don't get me wrong. They had to deal with many of the boneheaded decisions that I was continuing to make, but they didn't just write me off as another lost cause. They saw me as a human being. They saw me as a young man with potential. They knew that I could be more than even I strived to be. Good, bad, and sometimes very ugly. They were invested. They were real. And it was their investment in me that inspired me to one day become a teacher myself. And so after graduating Indiana State University with a degree in elementary education, fate took me to the small town of Sebring, Florida. And I will never, ever forget that phone interview. You know, I asked, they always give you that time to ask questions at the end, and I said, you know, I'm a big city boy. What's there to do in Sebring, Florida? And I remember Linda Alexander, who was on the committee, I remember her saying, oh, well, you'll love it here. We have beaches. No, it's more like lakefronts, all right? John, we have a mall. Indianapolis had 7 malls, all right? then there was this pause. And you could sense, now even over the phone, I could sense that there was excitement building in her voice. And then she said, "John, we have a red lobster." A red lobster. I was speechless. But nevertheless, I accepted my first teaching job at Woodlawn Elementary, teaching 3rd grade, and I've been at that school ever since. And I got to tell you, I could not wait to teach that first class. Then it happened. Something that no college class could ever prepare you for. And as I have talked to teachers over the year, they tell me that they wish they could expunge this from their record forever. The first year of teaching. Oh yeah, you've been there. I think back and I think to myself, I had no idea what I was doing. And while those first few years may not have been my most shining moments, I learned lessons that shaped me ever since. And I had incredible mentor teachers, but to be truthful, the biggest lessons I learned that year came from a particular student. This is Angelo. And as you can tell from this picture, Angelo and I had a contentious relationship. You know, he was what my former teachers would have called payback. You see, if I said go, Angelo was going to stop. If I said slow down, oh, he was going to speed up. If I said be quiet, he was going to talk as loud as he could. He was going to do anything he could to make my life as a teacher difficult. And the last thing on his mind was anything academic. Now, I was bound and determined to break this kid no matter what. Because, let's be real, I was the teacher. He was the student. He would have to eventually bend to my will. Oh yeah, you've been there. You know it didn't work out that way. And I'll never forget, about 6 weeks into school, Angelo had had enough. I think I had gotten on to him in front of the class, and he was upset, and we were lining up for PE, and all of a sudden I look at the line, and I notice Angelo is missing. I'm thinking to myself, oh, great. My first year of teaching, and I have already lost a student. And so I asked the line, I asked, have you seen Angelo? And finally you see a little hand that just points back to my little computer pods in the back. I don't see Angelo back there, but then all of a sudden I see this little foot sticking out from underneath, doing one of these. And I'm thinking to myself, oh my goodness, for sure I'm going to get fired now. I mean, I've got to get this class to PE, and I've got Angelo playing Tarzan under my computers with the computer wires. I'm done. Luckily, though, Mrs. Hoffman, my mentor teacher, came to save the day. She took my class down to PE, and I knew this was my moment. I was on. So I marched back there to that computer table. I sat down, and I went into full-blown teacher pep talk. Oh, yeah. I was like, Angelo, what are you doing? Buddy, I come in, day out, trying to prepare the most exciting lessons for you and the other students. Oh, yeah, you've said it, haven't you? Oh, yeah. I pour my heart into this class and into you. Kiddo, I love you, and this is how you repay me. You constantly disrespect me with your words and your actions. I just don't get it. What do I need to do? And then I waited for what seemed like forever. And then 4 words came from underneath that table that I will never forget. Angelo said, "You don't love me." You talk about crushing. You ever want to know the truth? Just ask a child. Because you see, Angelo was exactly right. Not only did I not love him, at that moment, I did not even like him. All right? Angelo taught me a lesson that morning that I would never, ever forget. Relationships, they matter, but they have to be real. You see, he needed somebody that didn't just say they believed in him. He needed someone to actually believe in him. And ever since that lesson that Angelo taught me, I have strived to build these types of real relationships with any student, with any family member that walks into my classroom door. However, I've got to confess, I'm an elementary teacher that teaches 6 to 12-year-olds. And you constantly wonder, am I truly getting through to them at this young of an age? And as teachers, I think we always question ourselves and ask ourselves, am I really making a difference? And that's when Amber gave me that answer. Amber is the one in the Pooh Bear shirt. And I'll never forget the day that she walked into my room. I'd been told ahead of time that she was going to be in my 3rd grade class that year. You see, Amber, like many students growing up, she was living in a single-parent family. Her mother was an amazing parent that was doing her best to provide for all of her family, but at times it was very difficult. Amber struggled academically, and at that time had an even lower self-esteem. So that year, I was bound and determined to make that feeling stop. I wasn't going to worry about if she learned her multiplication tables that year, or if she passed the big state assessment. I was just going to pour into her, just like Angelo had taught me, and just be real and let her know how much she was valued and how much she was loved. And you know what? It was an amazing year. Amber's self-esteem soared through the roof, and her academics followed the same trend. Her family and I had become very close, and we were all just so proud of Amber's progress. But unfortunately, after that year, they had to move, and I hadn't heard from Amber again until about 1.5 years ago. I received a letter. I get this letter in my school mailbox. I opened it, and it said, "Dear Mr. Spencer, this is Amber Deason. I don't know if you remember me, but I just wanted you to know what an impact you had in my life." And then she went on to summarize all the things she remembered in our classroom. And now I'm glad you're sitting down, because you know what? She didn't talk about the math she learned that year. She didn't talk about the first chapter book that she had read that year. She didn't even remember that she had passed that coveted state assessment. No, what she talked about was how the class had made her feel about herself that year. And then at the end of the letter, she says, "Mr. Spencer, you made a promise at the end of that year." I'm thinking to myself, oh, Lordy, Lordy, Lordy. Who knows what I said 11 years ago that could now come back and haunt me? But it was actually a promise that we make to every student at the end of every year. And it's that when that time comes for you to graduate, if you invite us, we're going to be right there to watch you walk across that aisle. Now, yeah, and I know it's a promise all you make too, but now I did not think that the first child that was going to take me up on that offer would live 1,200 miles away. So, I'm not going to lie, I went home and I had to think about it for about 30 minutes, but then started to make travel arrangements. And then one flight, a 4-hour car ride, a few wrong turns later, my dad and I finally arrived in Chesapeake, Ohio for about 5 minutes before Amber's graduation. Now, we had to park about a half a mile away So we are running to the gym. And I mean, we're going. My dad finally, eventually just gives up. And he's like, so I finally get to the gym, and it is packed. You know small towns and you know high school graduations. Everybody comes. It was packed. So I squeezed my way through, at least so I could get into the back. So I'm at the very back, and I can see the stage up front. I've got myself wiggled up there. The graduates are starting to come in, and then all of a sudden I get a tap on my shoulder. I turn around, it's a complete stranger. And she looks at me and she says, "We've got a seat for you." Me? I don't know you. For me? She said, "I'm Amber's sister, and my family has a row up here, and we have saved a seat for you." So I'm not going to lie. As she's escorting me up that row in front of all these people that are standing up, it was one of those moments where you're like, yeah, wish you knew somebody. Yeah, yeah, that's right. And I got to sit with that family, and I got to watch Amber walk across that stage and get handed that high school diploma. I was so proud of her. So proud of her. And I remember she came down. She gave me a big hug. And then I had to, we talked for a little bit, but then I had to ask. I said, "So Amber, this can't be it. I mean, what's next? What are you going to do?" She looked me right in the eyes. She said, "Mr. Spencer, I've been accepted at OU Southern, and I'm going to be a teacher." And she said, "I'm going to teach students with special needs because I want to inspire children the way you inspired me." Now that was real. That is why we do what we do. You see, from Mr. Smith and Coach Carney to me, from me to Amber, future generations of teachers were born. Think about that. I hope to one day get to see the impact that Amber has on her students. You see, Angelo and Amber didn't need another teacher pep talk. What they needed was somebody to be real with them. What they needed was somebody who was willing to show them patience and love, even when sometimes that love had to be tough. You see, having that authentic relationship allowed them to believe in me. And if you truly want a kid to invest in your classroom, you have to first truly invest in them. No empty, "you can do it" speeches or life lessons. Just be real with them. Just be yourself. Because we all know that's what real love requires. And that's what we're talking about when we talk about that word real. It's about love. And it's about giving all the love you've got. You see, I was blessed to have Mr. Smith and Coach Carney be living examples of that kind of love. And I'm grateful to Angelo for teaching me what a real teacher looked like. And it's those real moments that empower for a lifetime. And not just for our students, but for us. And you see, my story is not unique at all. All of you in here, I guarantee, have already flipped through some people in your mind that are your Ambers and your Angelos. We all have them. And I think it's about time that we all start to use those stories and all get a little bit more real. Because I wonder what would happen if we could be more real with students and families, with administrators, with our district offices, with our state boards of education. What would happen if we could take politics and put them to the side and have a real conversation with our state legislatures? What would happen? Because what I think maybe if we all just kept it a little bit more real, we'd start to see the real change in education that we all hope and pray for every